Disciplina was a goddess in Roman mythology. She was referred to education and training, self-control and resolve, understanding in the subject of study, and living an orderly life. For her devotees, the goddess personified these qualities. She was widely worshipped by imperial Roman troops, particularly those stationed around the Roman Empire's frontiers. Shrines to her have been discovered in the United Kingdom and North Africa. The fort at Cilurnum on Hadrian's wall was devoted to the goddess Disciplina, as shown by an inscription on a stone altar discovered in 1978. Her main qualities were frugalitas, severitas, and fidelis, which translates as frugality, sternness, and loyalty. In today's world, we might just know the concept of disciplina as self-discipline, a very arduous concept for most of us. As the world opens up and makes things easier for us, the arduousness is understandable. Technology is the modern-day Pandora's box. So, when the world is offering us so much, how can one resist? Especially when there is an abundance of nuggets of pleasure. As soon as you start studying, the PlayStation beside you just starts begging to be played. And it is not just technology posing as Pandora's box. When you're trying to lose weight, desserts seem much more savory. When you decided to start a project that you got from work, why does the bed seem so much softer? Well, that is Pandora's box beckoning to you, at least in concept. When everything counterproductive seems so alluring, can self-discipline really be maintained? Can the Roman goddess Disciplina triumph in the 21st century? Well, Antony has a lot to say about that. Antony loved hearing the guitar. He loved guitar music. He wanted to play it. So what does he do? He goes to a music store, talks with the salesperson, and finally purchases a guitar. Back at home, he pulls out tutorials on YouTube and starts to play. But playing an instrument is hard, Antony finds. And for some reason, his fingers seem too big for the frets. In fact, his fingertips start swelling up the more he frets the guitar. "This is difficult," he says, "but I'll learn it no matter what." Days pass by. The teachers on YouTube seem to play so effortlessly. They play great music, but Antony cannot. He tries and he tries, and by the end of the second week, Antony starts bailing on his guitar practice, almost daily. 2 weeks in, he gives up on playing the guitar. This is not an uncommon story. Neither is this loss of interest just restricted to musicians. Many of us know many people who started to do something they really liked, but they soon dropped out of it. In fact, many of us have been through this ourselves. Does this mean that the things we want to do aren't really interesting? Or does this mean that we aren't competent enough to do them? Let's take a look at a famous quote by Theodore Roosevelt. "Nothing worth having comes easy." For the purpose of the video, we will not be getting into who said it. Instead, let's focus on what the quote is about. Nothing worth having comes easy. So, is guitar playing easy? Is photography easy? Is teaching easy? Is research easy? Experts in these fields have different stories to tell. That is how seriously they take their work. But what we could observe in the vast majority of accomplished professionals is years of struggle. Sure, you can hear a lot of professionals talk about mistakes they made. But the point is that they actually did something. And they didn't do it just for a fortnight. It took them years to get closer to what they wanted. That is where Disciplina answered their call. That is the story of self-discipline. When starting a new journey, we look at the goal in front of us. The big picture, as we usually call it. But the thing is that the big picture is rarely ever a picture. The main goal is rarely ever static. What this means is that our journey towards the goal is a part of our goal as well. Take the example of one of the great musicians of all time, Jimi Hendrix. Since a very tender age, Jimi wanted to be a guitarist. When he was at school, he used to carry around a broomstick in his arms holding it like a guitar. But it wasn't until he got to the age of 15 when he got his first guitar for $5. But he was already practicing Elvis's songs on a one-stringed ukulele fairly regularly. He could have easily said, "To hell with this," and no one, I repeat, no one would have any qualms about it. It is a very tough job to learn music, and that is where self-discipline is key. Once he got his guitar, from then on out, it was a journey of years. He had regular jamming sessions, he took feedback from others, he welcomed criticism, and most of all, he kept himself controlled enough to realize that it's going to take years. And now we revere him across the globe as an icon. The thing is, circumstances change. Sometimes they get better, sometimes they get worse, and due to the circumstances, we change too. And that is why self-discipline is so hard. Across the billions of humans on Earth, we can find a very common cycle of work or struggle. First, we are excited. Then we take action. Then circumstances change. And then we withdraw our action as well. Just like Anthony. So let's do something here. Let's take a deep breath, pause, answer this question. Do you want to reach your goal or do you want easy results? I'm assuming that you want both, as almost any person out there, but a lot of the times that is simply not possible. Fortunately or unfortunately, gratification is a very important goal in itself. For example, Sasha gets gratification when a magazine sends a message to her requesting for her amateur nature photographs for their column. Or Mark gets gratification when his supervisor approves his research proposal. I bet Jimi Hendrix felt gratification too when he first started live gigs. And generally, the more we are gratified, the more we pursue. But what happens when gratification is hard to come by? Well, we slack off. We put our work aside more until the day we abandon it completely. And what did Hendrix do when he was fired from the band with which he played his first live gig? He joined another band and kept at it. Why? Because he wanted to play and compose music. How? Because he knew how to keep going on. He knew that he couldn't slack off for long. And from his example, we can take a few nuggets of wisdom. How can we remain self-disciplined? Well, let's go into that. First, let's make sure our environment is right for our progress. Second, let's also make a pact to not completely give up on our dreams. Breaks are good. Taking time off is very good after a lot of hard work. But completely giving up altogether is another thing. With this, let's end our discussion today by uttering a phrase together. I want you to repeat after me. You could do it in your head. Here it goes. Nothing worth having comes easy. Hope you liked today's content. If you have any other thoughts, please leave a comment below.